No one can deny that Greeks and athletics play a big role in campus life, but sometimes they can go too far. No matter who you are, and whether or not you're involved in Greeks or athletics, this division between Greeks, athletes, and the rest of the student body will affect you. This division among the student body needs to be lessened. In my speech, first I will tell you why this division is such a big problem here at the College of Worcester. I will then tell you what the College of Worcester can do to help solve this problem. After, I will tell you how we will benefit from my solution. And finally, I will tell you what you all as students can do to help. So what is this problem? Well, since the College of Worcester has such a small population of students, the division between Greeks, athletes, and the rest of the student body is a huge problem. How do we know it's a problem? Well, when you walk into Lowry Dining Hall, you can immediately identify tables that have different Greek clubs and athletic teams just sitting together. Now, usually these people are just engaging with each other and not branching out and talking to other students. To outsiders, they seem very cliquey. And this will pose as a problem when prospective students come and visit the campus and they walk into Lowry and just see all these groups and cliques sitting together. This division is also evident in the classroom. In a face-to-face interview with Kelly Jones on April 12th, she discussed how in her psychology class, there is a group of boys from the Greek club Xi Chi that all sit together in the back of the classroom and don't talk to anybody else. Even in our class on a normal day, we can see how usually the baseball boys all sit together in the back. Since most of the parties on campus are hosted by Greek clubs, it oftentimes ends up leaving a lot of students feeling excluded. In that same interview with Kelly, she discussed her frustration towards the exclusivity of the parties by saying that she's even had to go to the extreme of leaving campus and going to another school on the weekends to party and have fun. And while there are parties that are open to everybody, they're clearly not enough. So how serious is this problem? This division is weakening much of what's trying to be accomplished here at the College of Worcester. Two of the college's core values are diversity and inclusivity, but we are not upholding these standards. In an email interview with Dean Holmes on April 10th, he discussed how this division, has been a problem that has been brought up to him year after year throughout his whole career. So we know that this isn't just a recent phenomenon because past students have been faced with this problem, and future students will continue to be faced with this problem if we don't find a solution now. This division provides a base for cliquey culture here at the College of Worcester, because eventually these Greek clubs and athletes will only engage in conversation with each other and just completely neglect and ignore other students altogether. In a face-to-face interview with a field hockey player that wishes to remain anonymous on April 12th, she discussed this issue by saying, and I quote, "I've noticed that some teams, even the field hockey teams at times, tend to keep to themselves and not spend much time with other people outside of their team or outside of a group of athletes. Now this must be a problem if even the team members are acknowledging their tendency to only talk to each other and ignore other students." In a Worcester Voice article published on April 13th by Wyatt Smith, it discussed a survey that was conducted regarding the influence of Greek life on campus. And out of the people that said that Greek life had a negative effect on campus, they described these Greek groups by saying, and I quote, that they are impenetrable cliques whose presence strongly segregates the campus community. It's true that these Greek members and athletes share strong bonds of connections because of how much time they're required to spend together, but this is taken to the extreme. Not only does this division cause emotional damage to students, it also causes physical harm. In a Worcester Voice article published on November 5th, 2010, it discussed how a Zeta Phi Gamma member named Laura Conan was actually attacked because of her status in a Greek club. Laura was standing outside of a house on East University Street one night when her attacker approached her and just asked her one simple question: "Are you a Zeta?" And when she answered yes, her attacker actually punched her in the face. Now, how safe do you feel knowing that this tension among students could escalate so much that it would result in physical violence? So why should you care about this problem? Well, I know that many of you in class right now are involved in either Greeks or athletics, and maybe even both. So it is important that you know the effective impact that you're having on campus. And even if you're not involved, you may have the same feelings towards this topic as I do, and hopefully you'll be able to gain some insight on how to help solve this problem. So what can be done? Well, this division between Greeks, athletes, and the rest of the student body can be lessened by requiring more campus-wide activities that involve everybody on campus. What do I mean? First, the school should require that athletes and Greeks engage in more group projects that involve the whole campus. And secondly, there should be more space readily available to hold parties. Well, how will this fix this problem? Well, let's start with how the group projects can help fix the problem. By requiring students to work together in a creative environment to reach a common goal, it will help them form new friendships and bonds that weren't able to be formed otherwise. And these projects would be service-oriented. One example of a project would be at the end of the year, when everybody has old furniture and clothes that they don't want, we would spend a couple of days coming together and piling all of our stuff together, and then at the last day, we would start taking trips and donating our old junk to Goodwill down the street. Now, how will party space help solve this problem? Well, with more party space, that means that more people will be allowed to come to these parties, and the more people that are invited means that the less people will feel excluded. We have two options here. We can find more space in buildings that we already have available to us on campus, or we can just construct a whole new building altogether. In a face-to-face interview with Joe Kirk on April 10th, he discussed how students have been expressing their desire to hold more parties under the stadium, so that's definitely an option. And in that same interview with Dean Holmes, he spoke hopefully of renovating a building we already have or completely building a new one. How do I know my plan will work? It works at Kenyon College, a school just an hour away in Gambier, Ohio. At Kenyon College, they hold a lot of parties in a school facility called Gun Commons, and that's it right over there. In an email interview with Steve Kaplan, a first year at Kenyon College, on April 14th, he discussed his feelings towards these parties held in school facilities by saying that they definitely make students feel a lot more included. Kenyon is a small liberal arts school, just like the College of Worcester, so there's no reason that this plan shouldn't work here as well. Now, you might have some questions running through your head. You might be asking, would constructing a facility just for parties even be realistic? Well, obviously, it would be foolish to think that right after my speech, they're going to start making the blueprints for a whole new facility right away. But Dean Holmes does acknowledge that this is a huge problem for the College of Worcester, and he does understand that social life is very important to students. So he doesn't think that the construction of a new facility is too far off on the horizon for students. You might also be asking, what if people stop coming to this new facility when they have parties, just like what happens at the UG? And my answer to this is that the UG is just gross. It's old and it's dirty, and frankly, there's just not enough space to hold all the people that would want to come to these parties. So if we built a new building, we would make it big enough and obviously more up to date than the UG, so it would be more inviting for students, thus they would actually want to come to these parties. Now I want you to do a little bit of visualization for me. Picture a campus being even further divided by these social divisions. It'll be like your worst chick flick movie coming true. And this is what's going to happen if we don't act now and find a solution. But I'm certain that we all don't want to live in a college community that is further divided by these social divisions. That is why the College of Worcester must make sure these extra steps are taken in order to better integrate the student body. And with these new activities and renovations, the College of Worcester can improve students' overall relationships with each other and provide an overall better sense of community. So what can you do to help? Now, I'm obviously not asking you guys to abandon your Greek clubs or your athletic teams. All I'm asking is that you just be a little bit more open to forming relationships with other people. And there's actually something you guys can do for me right now. But everyone stand up and switch seats with someone really fast. Next to someone you've never spoken to in class before. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, we're standing in front of the camera. He has no. So maybe try doing this in your other classes. Obviously, it's not a huge step, but even the little things like this can help the College of Worcester be one step closer to creating a tight-knit community of students, and we really will be a campus of independent minds working together. Any questions? Yeah. Yep.
I have three for you. So, because this speech touched home for me. I guess to first address I guess your call to action with regards to sitting in classes. I know I've done that several times in my Spanish class. I mean, this is my own personal experience and other classes as well. Would you think that professors would be able to advocate students moving, and that this isn't necessarily a Lowry setting issue, but a classroom setting issue as addressed in your speech by the Zyki's and baseball players in this class specifically?
So what exactly is your question? I'm sorry. If the professors
should advocate that.
So Adriana's question was whether professors should advocate, people switching up the seats and just engaging in conversation with other people. And I think that, obviously if most students aren't going to want to just get up and, sit in a different seat every day and talk to someone new on their own, obviously. I think that it would be a good idea for professors to, just give the students the push they need to at least, attempt to go out and meet new people and maybe talk to someone that they've never spoken to before. So I think it definitely does stem from, leadership. And even, if you did that, and
I got a lot of animosity for it. Because I would sit in someone's seat and
right.
They'd say, well, what the hell are you doing? That's my seat.
Right.
And so it's very difficult, I think, as a student to sit in someone else's seat. I did it in Kelsey's in my Chinese class. I did it in my Spanish class. I haven't done it in here because I'm comfortable on my seat. And I think that would be another really great call to action. My second question for you is about the UG. And so, did you know that in the campus master plan, and again, I know a lot about this because of my speech, that they are advocating redoing it as a, a party place for students?
Right, so Adriana's question was whether I knew if they were actually planning on renovating the UG. I didn't know that, but I think that still, even if they made things more up to date and cleaned it up a little, I think a big issue that we're still faced with is the space issue. Just because, UG is in a basement and it's not, there's space, but there's not enough space for how many people, would want to attend these parties. Right. So I think building just a bigger facility altogether, it would be newer and up to date, it would be bigger. So I think that would solve a lot of problems.
And then my third question for you is, as a deactivated member of the Greek community, who is also a member of the swim team, I feel that groups on campus promote support systems and promote a social climate that allows students to feel grounded at the college. So my question for you is, how do we promote, especially as a deactivated member, I think it's important, to know that, you allow yourself more time with other students, but how do you promote, other students being involved with Greek groups and within team dynamics?
So you're asking how do we get everybody else involved? Okay, so Adriana asked how do we get everybody else involved. I think that the more, activities on campus would definitely help. And I think, Greek Life does some things right now where they do a lot of things like just campus-wide activities. But I think that athletic groups, right? And I think athletic groups, I think that's important too. That there should be activities specifically for the athletes as well. And it's just like educating the student body and letting them know what Greeks and athletes are all about, because I think that we have these stereotypes about athletes and Greeks, and just to break those barriers, I think that's the most important part of educating the students.
Thanks, Julia.
I just have a question about how the new building was like. Would it, obviously drinking and parties is a huge thing. So would this building be guarded by administrators or security or anything? Is it such a public building?
Well, okay, so she asked how the building would be run, and I kind of have two responses to that. I feel like right now, even in, obviously people do drink when they go to the Greek houses and have parties, but I feel like a lot of the drinking is, for most people, is done before you even get to the party. So sorry, but so I feel like in some respects, you know how at the UG right now we have a bar, but it's in, I mean, it could work something like that where we install, you know, like a bar in the building. Because I know at Kenyon College, what they do is they have the same thing in the Gun Commons. It's a huge like ballroom, but then they still have an area where, you know, they sell alcohol and everything. So I guess it would work something like that. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
I know for my sorority we do have like all campus events, and like we'll do things in pit before sporting events where we like invite people to make signs, and then we have like all campus barbecues, and then so we have those, but no one outside of like the Greek community ever ends up coming.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a communication issue? Or do you think people are just like afraid to come?
Okay, so Miranda asked whether, I mean, she said that her sorority holds campus-wide activities often, but usually people don't end up showing up, so she wants to know if that's a communication issue or if other students are just kind of intimidated or afraid. And I think that it would be a little bit of both. I mean, I think that, you know, it is a little, I mean, not scary, I don't know what the right word would be, but going in to, you know, an event where you know that there's going to be a tight-knit group of people that all know each other, they're all friends with each other, it could be kind of seen as maybe like intruding. And I think that for some people, I mean, obviously it goes back to the educating the public. They don't really know what these groups are all about. They don't have the right ideas about them. So I think a lot of people wouldn't really want to go to these events just because they don't know the facts about the groups.
My question is kind of similar to Miranda's. I have several friends who are not involved in the Greek life who are members of the lacrosse team, and for the most part, they pretty much unanimously didn't even know that Greek Week had happened until it was over.
Right.
And so I think that a big part of the issue is the school downplaying Greek interaction with the rest of the campus, because there was no sort of, you know, we didn't get an email, there was no dissemination of information about the fact that the Greek life was trying to incorporate things with the entire campus. So my question is, does the administration recognize that as an issue? Have you talked to them about their role in communicating to the wider campus populace? And what kind of have you figured out in that area?
Okay, so he asked about whether I've talked to anybody about better educating the student body about when these events happen. And I actually did, when I sat down and interviewed Joe Kirk, the head of Greek. He told me that, I mean, that is the biggest problem that we have on campus, because, I mean, a lot of times you can put up flyers, you know, you see flyers all the time and posters around Lowry about different events that are taking place, but, I mean, I know, at least for me, like, I don't stop and just take a look at the different events that are going on. So, yeah, he said that, one of the biggest issues is getting the word out there about different events that happen within Greek life. So, I mean, I think that's definitely something that we need to work on, and he acknowledges that is a big deal.
In regards to, like, you're talking about lack of space for parties on campus, and then you tied it into the idea that you were going to build like a building for like campus parties or something, and then also tying that into the idea of having a bar in those areas. I feel that if you put a bar in those areas, they have to make it so it's over 21 can only order drinks, and the realization of that is that already excludes, what, like 65, 70% of campus. So do you feel like there'd be enough demand for that? Because when people go to a party, they generally would like to drink alcohol, and I feel like already excluding 65 to 70% of the campus, I don't really feel like there might not be the demand for that whole new space.
Right. Okay, that was a good question. So he brought up the issue of alcohol because obviously college students like alcohol. But I mean, okay, it's gonna get kind of weird. But okay, at Kenyon, I know because I've been to parties held in that facility before, and when you go into the UG and Greek parties, they mark your hands with X's, and if you're underage. But so at Kenyon, what they do is they do that when you come into the party, but once you're in, they don't really care. So okay, that's horrible. I know.
I mean, that's huge liability, and Kenyon is so lucky it hasn't tainted the institution. Because because I'm personally involved with the administration, and I know personally that President Cornwell would not.
Well, right, I know, but what I'm saying is like that's the reality for most colleges.